The station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Korath Prime, and it was home to one of the most famous schools in the galaxy. The Valarian Interstellar Academy accepted only the best students from dozens of different species. Children of diplomats studied here. Children of wealthy families learned here. And now, for the first time in the Academy's 300-year history, a human walked its halls. Her name was Katie Morgan. She was 17 years old, and she was completely alone. Katie sat in the back corner of the dining hall, eating her meal in silence. The food was strange. It had been grown in laboratories and shaped to look appealing, but it tasted like nothing she recognized. She missed bread. She missed fruit that grew on trees. She missed the simple act of drinking water that came from a mountain stream. Around her, hundreds of students from different worlds talked and laughed together. Their languages filled the air like music, translated by the small devices everyone wore. Katie understood every word, but she did not join any conversation. She had learned very quickly that most of them did not want her there. Earth had been discovered only 5 years ago. A survey ship had stumbled upon the small blue planet at the edge of an unfashionable arm of the galaxy. The crew had been excited at first. A new species, a civilization that had developed technology, but then they had looked closer at Earth, and their excitement had turned to horror. The planet was classified as a Class 1-2 Deathworld. The gravity was crushing by galactic standards. The atmosphere contained a gas called oxygen that was poisonous to many species. The water was filled with salt and minerals and microscopic creatures that could kill an unprepared visitor in days. The land was covered with predators and parasites and plants that had developed poisons to defend themselves. Earthquakes shook the ground. Volcanoes spilled fire across the surface. Storms tore through the sky with enough force to destroy cities. And somehow, impossibly, a species had evolved there. Humans had not just survived on this nightmare world. They had thrived. They had built civilizations. They had split the atom and reached for the stars. The galactic community did not know what to make of humanity. Some were curious. Some were afraid. Most simply wanted to keep their distance. But the diplomats had talked, and agreements had been reached. And now Katie Morgan was here at the Academy, as part of an exchange program. She was supposed to prove that humans could integrate peacefully with the rest of the galaxy. She was doing her best. Katie finished her meal and stood up to leave. As she walked toward the exit, she passed a table of Kelvari students. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and markings that glowed softly in the dim light. Their homeworld was a gentle place, with low gravity and calm weather. They had never needed to fight for survival. Evolution had made them beautiful instead of strong. One of them was named Vrex Talamar. His family owned shipping routes across half the sector. He was rich and powerful and used to getting whatever he wanted. Right now, he wanted Katie to know that she did not belong. "There goes the primitive," he said loudly as she passed. His friends laughed. "I hear her species still eats dead animals. Can you imagine? Putting flesh in your mouth and chewing it?" Katie kept walking. She did not look at him. She did not respond. "They say her planet is so dangerous that her people die by the millions every year," Vrex continued. "Disease. Accidents. They kill each other for resources. It is a miracle any of them survive at all." Katie reached the door and stepped through. The laughter followed her into the corridor. She walked to her quarters with her eyes forward and her face calm. The hallways of the academy were wide and clean, designed to accommodate species of many different sizes. Katie passed a group of Morthene students who pressed themselves against the wall as she approached. They were predators on their homeworld, hunters with sharp claws and fast reflexes, but they had evolved in low gravity. They weighed less than half of what Katie weighed. She could see the fear in their eyes as she walked past. Everyone here knew what a Deathworld was. Everyone here knew what it meant that Katie had grown up on one. But knowing something and understanding it were two different things. Katie reached her quarters and closed the door behind her. The room was small but comfortable. She had decorated it with pictures from home. Mountains covered in snow. Forests, thick with green. A river cutting through a valley. Sometimes she would look at these pictures and feel so homesick that her chest hurt. Her computer terminal blinked with a message. It was from Derek Lane, the human counselor assigned to the embassy level. He checked in with her every week to make sure she was adjusting. His message was simple: "How are you holding up?" Katie sat down and typed her reply. "Fine. Nothing I cannot handle." It was the truth. The whispers and the insults and the looks of disgust were unpleasant, but they were not dangerous. Katie had faced worse. She had grown up in a place called Colorado, in the mountains of western North America. She had learned to hike before she could read. She had encountered bears and mountain lions and snakes that could kill with a single bite. She had survived blizzards and wildfires and summers so hot that the air itself felt like an enemy. This academy, with its controlled temperatures and artificial gravity and recycled air, was the safest place she had ever been. The students here did not understand that. They saw her as primitive. They saw her as weak. They saw her as something to mock and dismiss. They did not see the predator hiding behind her quiet smile. Katie looked at the picture of the mountains on her wall. She thought about home. She thought about the way the wind sounded as it moved through pine trees. She thought about the feeling of solid ground beneath her feet and real sunlight on her skin. She missed it all so much, but she had a job to do. She was here to prove that humans could be peaceful. She was here to show that her species could integrate with the rest of the galaxy. She would not let them down, even if some of them made it very, very difficult. She went to bed early that night. Tomorrow would be another day of classes, another day of whispers, another day of pretending that the insults did not bother her. She did not know that Vrix Talamar was already making plans. She did not know that he had gathered his friends and told them it was time to teach the human a lesson. She did not know that tomorrow would be the day everything changed. Katie slept peacefully, dreaming of mountains and rivers, and a world that had tried its best to kill her and failed. In the morning, she would wake up and face whatever came next. That was what humans did. That was what they had always done. They survived. The day started like any other. Katie woke up early, showered in water that was too clean and too warm, and dressed in the simple gray uniform that all academy students wore. She ate breakfast alone in her quarters because she had learned that the dining hall was louder in the mornings. Then she gathered her things and walked to her first class. Xenobiology was her favorite subject. The professor was a Valorian named Dr. Kess, a patient and thoughtful teacher who did not seem to care that Katie was human. She treated everyone the same. Katie appreciated that more than she could express. Today's lesson was about evolutionary adaptation. Dr. Kess showed images of different species and explained how their bodies had changed over millions of years to survive their environments. She showed the Kelvari, with their tall, thin frames designed for low gravity. She showed the Droshan, with their multiple limbs and quick reflexes built for chasing prey. She showed the Morthine, with their sharp claws and night vision developed for hunting in darkness. Then she showed humans. The class went silent. Katie felt every eye turn toward her. She kept her face still and her hands folded on her desk. Dr. Kess explained that humans were what scientists called persistence predators. They did not have claws or fangs or venom. They were not particularly fast or strong compared to the other animals on their world. But they had something else. They had endurance. Humans could walk for hours without stopping. They could sweat to cool their bodies when other animals would overheat. They could track prey across vast distances, following it until it collapsed from exhaustion. They did not need to be faster or stronger than their food. They just needed to be more patient. And they were. They were unbelievably, terrifyingly patient. Dr. Kess also explained that humans had evolved on a planet with heavy gravity. Their bones were dense. Their muscles were thick. A human could carry weight that would crush a Kelvari. A human could survive falls that would kill a Morthine. A human could keep functioning with injuries that would put most species into shock. The class listened in uncomfortable silence. Katie stared at her desk and wished the lesson would end. Finally it did. The students filed out, giving Katie a wide space as they passed. She gathered her things slowly, waiting for the room to empty. Dr. Kess caught her eye and gave her a small nod. It was the closest thing to sympathy Katie had received all week. The rest of the day passed slowly. Katie attended her classes, took her notes, and spoke only when the teachers called on her. She ate lunch alone in a quiet corner near the engineering wing. She walked from room to room with her eyes forward and her expression calm. She did not notice Vrex watching her. She did not see him talking to his friends, pointing in her direction, making plans. She was focused on getting through the day, 1 hour at a time. The final class ended in the late afternoon. Katie packed her bag and started walking toward the transit hub that would take her back to the residential sector. She usually took the main corridors, but today they were crowded with students heading to some kind of event in the recreation center. Katie did not like crowds. They made her feel trapped, so she turned down a side hallway and headed for the Eastern Maintenance Corridor. It was a shortcut she had discovered in her second week at the academy. The lighting was dim, and the walls were lined with pipes and conduits, but it cut 10 minutes off her walk. She had never seen anyone else use it. Today was different. Katie walked around a corner and stopped. 5 figures stood in the hallway ahead, blocking her path. Vrex Talamar was in the center, his bioluminescent markings glowing a deep, angry blue. On either side of him were 2 Kelvari students and 2 Droshan. They were all bigger than her. They were all looking at her with expressions that promised trouble. Katie heard footsteps behind her. She glanced back and saw 2 more students stepping out from a side passage. A Morthine with dark fur and yellow eyes. Another Kelvari with markings that pulsed with excitement. 7 of them, 1 of her. Katie turned back to face Vrex. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder and waited. Vrex stepped forward. His thin face was twisted with disgust. "The primitive thinks she can walk wherever she wants," he said. "She thinks she belongs here. She thinks she is one of us." Katie did not respond. She was counting. 7 opponents. Corridor was about 3 meters wide. Ceiling was low. No security cameras that she could see. Actually, no. There was 1 camera. It was mounted in the corner where the ceiling met the wall. Its small red light blinked steadily. "You do not belong here," Vrex continued. "Your species is barely civilized. You come from a world of violence and death. You eat flesh. You wage wars against each other. You are everything we have evolved beyond." Katie looked at him calmly. "I do not want any trouble," she said. Her voice was quiet and steady. "Please move aside and let me pass." Vrex laughed. The sound was high and sharp, like breaking glass. "She does not want trouble. Did you hear that?" He looked at his friends. "The Deathworlder does not want trouble." The others laughed too. The sound echoed off the metal walls. Katie felt something shift inside her. It was a feeling she knew well. It was the feeling she got when she was hiking in the mountains and heard a branch snap behind her. It was the feeling she got when she saw fresh tracks in the snow and knew that something was hunting nearby. It was the feeling that came before action, before movement, before the moment when thinking stopped and instinct took over. She pushed it down. She was here to prove that humans could be peaceful. She would not be the one to start a fight. "Please," she said again. "Just let me pass. I do not want to hurt anyone." Vrex's markings flared brighter. "Hurt anyone?" He took another step closer. "You think you could hurt us? You think a primitive little Deathworlder could hurt 7 of us?" He reached out to shove her shoulder. Katie's hand moved before she could think. She caught his wrist in midair. Her fingers wrapped around the thin bones and held them gently but firmly. Vrex tried to pull away. He could not. His markings went pale with shock. He pulled harder, using all his strength, and Katie's arm did not move at all. It was like trying to pull free from stone. The corridor went silent. The other students stared. None of them had ever seen anything like this. Katie looked into Vrex's eyes. She saw the fear there, the sudden understanding that something was very wrong. She spoke softly, almost gently. "I am asking you nicely," she said. "Please step aside." Vrex's voice came out as a whisper. "Get her." The others hesitated. They looked at Vrex's trapped wrist, at Katie's calm face, at the way she was holding him without any visible effort. They did not want to move. "Get her!" Vrex screamed. Above them, the security camera flickered. Its red light blinked once, twice, and went dark. The corridor fell into shadow. The only light came from the bioluminescent markings of the Kelvari, casting strange blue patterns on the walls. Katie released Vrex's wrist and took a step back. She set her bag on the ground. She rolled her shoulders and stretched her neck from side to side. "All right," she said quietly. The first Droshan lunged at her, and everything changed. The Droshan was fast. His species had evolved to chase down prey on their homeworld, and his legs carried him across the corridor in less than a second. His arms reached for Katie's throat, claws extended, ready to grab and hold. He never touched her. Katie shifted her weight and stepped to the side. The movement was small, almost lazy, but it was enough. The Droshan's claws closed on empty air. His momentum carried him forward, and Katie helped him along. She grabbed his arm as he passed and used his own speed against him. He flew into the wall with a sound like thunder, metal bending under the impact. He slid to the ground and did not move. The whole thing took less than 2 seconds. The others stared. They had seen fights before. They had watched combat training in their physical education classes, but they had never seen anything like this. The Droshan was one of the fastest students in the academy. He should have been able to grab a human easily. Instead, he was lying on the floor with his eyes closed. 2 Kelvari rushed forward together. They had some training. They knew that attacking one at a time was foolish. They came at Katie from different angles, trying to overwhelm her with numbers. Katie ducked under the first swing. The Kelvari's arm passed over her head, and she drove her palm into his chest. The blow was not particularly hard by human standards. She was holding back, trying not to cause serious damage. But Kelvari bones were light and hollow. Built for a world with gentle gravity, the impact sent him stumbling backward, gasping for breath, his hands clutching his ribs. The second Kelvari swung at her face. Katie blocked with her forearm. The collision jarred her attacker so badly that he cried out in pain. Before he could recover, Katie swept his legs out from under him. He hit the floor hard. She dropped her knee onto his back and pinned him there. "Stay down," she said quietly. He stayed down. The remaining students hesitated. 4 of their friends were already on the ground, and the human was not even breathing hard. She stood up slowly, her eyes moving from face to face. She looked calm. She looked almost bored. The Morthine stepped back. His species were ambush predators. They did not fight enemies who knew they were coming. Everything in his body was screaming at him to run away, to find somewhere dark and safe and hide. He had never felt this feeling before. He did not know what to call it. The word was prey. He felt like prey. "Together!" Vrex shouted. His voice was high and desperate. "All of us together. Now!" The remaining 4 attacked at once. 2 more Droshan, 1 Kelvari. And after a moment of hesitation, the Morthine, they rushed at Katie from all sides, reaching for her arms and legs, trying to grab her and hold her down through sheer numbers. Katie moved. It was not like the fights they showed in entertainment programs. There was no dramatic posing, no flashy techniques, no pauses for clever words. Katie moved with brutal efficiency, every action flowing into the next without wasted motion. She caught one Droshan by the arm and twisted. The joint bent the wrong way and he screamed. She released him, and he fell, curling around his injured limb. The second Droshan tried to tackle her around the waist. She sprawled her weight backward and drove her elbow down into his spine. He collapsed face first onto the floor. The Kelvari tried to grab her from behind. Katie snapped her head back. Her skull connected with his face and she felt something crunch. He stumbled away, blue blood pouring between his fingers. The Morthine was the last one still standing besides Vrex. He had hung back, waiting for an opening. Now he realized there would be no opening. The human was too fast, too strong, too aware of everything around her. She turned to face him and he saw something in her eyes that made his heart stop. He saw hunger, not the hunger of appetite, the hunger of a predator looking at prey, the cold, calculating gaze of something that had spent millions of years learning how to kill. The Morthine turned and ran. He got 3 steps before Katie caught him by the back of his uniform and pulled him off his feet. She lowered him to the ground almost gently and pressed 2 fingers against the side of his neck. He felt a strange pressure, and then the world went dark. Katie stood up. The corridor was silent, except for the sounds of groaning and whimpering. 6 students lay around her in various states of pain. The fight had lasted less than 90 seconds. Vrex stood alone at the end of the hallway. His bioluminescent markings had gone completely pale. His whole body was shaking. He pressed himself against the wall as Katie walked toward him, her footsteps echoing in the quiet. She stopped in front of him. Close enough to touch. Close enough for him to see the small scratch on her cheek, where one of the Kelvari had managed to land a glancing blow. It was the only mark on her. "Do you understand now?" Katie asked. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "Do you understand what a death world is?" Vrex could not speak. His throat had closed up with terror. Katie continued. "On my planet, children learn to run before they can walk. We learn to fight before we learn to read. We grow up surrounded by things that can kill us. The air has storms that tear buildings apart. The water has creatures with teeth. The land has predators that hunt in packs and parasites that eat you from the inside." She leaned closer. Vrex pressed himself harder against the wall, trying to get away from her. But there was nowhere to go. "Everything on my world is trying to kill us," Katie said. "The weather, the animals, the plants, the diseases, even each other. Sometimes. And we survive anyway. We survive because we are stubborn and clever, and we never, ever give up." She reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face. The movement was casual, almost careless. But Vrex flinched, as if she had raised a weapon. "I have been polite," Katie said. "I have been quiet. I have let you insult me and mock me, and treat me like I do not deserve to be here. Because I was told to be peaceful. Because I was told to prove that humans can integrate with the rest of the galaxy." She tilted her head slightly. "But I am tired of being polite. So, let me ask you something, Vrex Talamar. Do you want me to keep being polite? Or would you like to find out what happens when I stop?" Vrex opened his mouth. Nothing came out except a small whimper. Katie nodded slowly. "I thought so." She stepped back. She walked over to where she had left her bag and picked it up. She slung it over her shoulder and turned back to face the corridor. 6 students were still on the ground. Vrex was still pressed against the wall, frozen with fear. Katie walked past him without another word. Her footsteps faded into the distance. Above, the security camera flickered back to life. Its red light blinked steadily, recording an empty corridor filled with injured students, and the echo of something they had not understood until it was too late. The silence stretched on for a long time. Then, finally, someone started to cry. The medical alert reached station security at exactly 17 minutes past the 17th hour. An automated system had detected elevated heart rates and stress hormones in multiple individuals within the Eastern Maintenance Corridor. By the time the security team arrived, they found 7 students in various states of injury lying on the cold metal floor. Commander Thess was the first senior officer on the scene. She was a Valorian, tall and gray-skinned, with decades of experience maintaining order on Korath Prime. She had dealt with fights before. She had dealt with accidents and arguments and the occasional act of violence. But she had never seen anything quite like this. The Droshan who had attacked first was unconscious with a severe concussion. 2 of the Kelvari had fractured bones in their arms. Another had a broken nose and would need reconstructive surgery. One of the other Droshan could barely move because of damage to his spine, though the doctors said he would recover. The Morthine was awake but confused, unable to explain why he had fallen asleep in the middle of a fight, and Vrex Talamar was physically unharmed but completely unresponsive. He sat against the wall with his arms wrapped around his knees, staring at nothing. When Commander Thess tried to speak with him, he flinched away from her voice. The security team scanned the area and found no weapons. They checked the environmental systems and found no toxic gases or electrical failures. They reviewed the structural integrity and found nothing that could have caused this level of damage. Then they checked the security footage. Commander Thess watched the recording 3 times. The first time, she saw the 7 students enter the corridor from one direction. She saw a single figure enter from the other direction. The figure was small and moved with a relaxed, easy pace. It was the human exchange student, Katie Morgan. The 2 groups met in the middle of the corridor. There was a brief exchange. One of the Kelvari reached toward the human. The human's hand moved, and then the camera went to static. 2 minutes and 14 seconds of static. When the feed resumed, the human was gone. The 7 students were on the ground. Nothing else had changed. Commander Thess watched it again. And again. The timing of the malfunction was too perfect to be coincidence. Something had interfered with the camera at exactly the wrong moment, or perhaps at exactly the right moment, depending on your perspective. She ordered her team to interview each of the students separately. Their stories were confused and contradictory. One of the Droshan claimed the human had attacked without warning. A Kelvari said she had used some kind of weapon. Another insisted she had moved so fast that he could not see her clearly. The Morthene was more honest. When Commander Thess pressed him, his yellow eyes dropped to the floor. He admitted that they had surrounded the human first. He admitted that Vrex had planned the confrontation. He admitted that they had intended to frighten her, maybe hurt her, teach her a lesson about her place in the academy. And then what happened? Commander Thess asked. The Morthene was quiet for a long moment. She stopped being afraid, he said finally. We thought she would be afraid. We thought she would cry or beg or try to run. But she just stood there and looked at us. And then she stopped being afraid. He looked up at Commander Thess with something like awe in his eyes. I have hunted animals on my homeworld. I know what it feels like to be the predator, but when she looked at me, I felt like I was the one being hunted. I have never felt anything like it. Commander Thess sent a message to the human embassy level. Within an hour, Derek Lane arrived at the security station. He was a middle-aged man with gray at his temples and calm brown eyes. He moved with the same easy confidence that all humans seem to have, as if the heavy gravity of the station was nothing to him. Commander Thess showed him the footage. Derek watched it once, nodded slowly, and said nothing. The camera malfunction is suspicious, Commander Thess said. It occurred at exactly the moment of the incident. Do you have any explanation for this? 9. Derek shrugged. Human technology sometimes interferes with older systems. We emit different electromagnetic frequencies than most species. Could be solar radiation. Could be a glitch in the station's wiring. Hard to say. Commander Thess did not believe him. His face was too calm, his answer too smooth. But she had no evidence to contradict him. 7 students were injured, she said. Some of them seriously. I need to understand what happened. Derek leaned back in his chair. From what I understand, 7 students cornered one human in an empty corridor. A corridor with no security cameras, as far as they knew. They blocked both exits. They surrounded her. And then they got exactly what they were asking for. And what is that? Derek smiled. It was not a friendly smile. A lesson about Deathworlds. He pulled out a small tablet and placed it on the desk between them. This is the official classification file for Earth. Class 1, 2, Deathworld. Would you like me to explain what that means? Commander Thess already knew the basics. Everyone knew the basics. But she nodded anyway. Derek began to explain. He told her about Earth's gravity, which was 50% higher than the galactic average. He told her about the oxygen-rich atmosphere that was poisonous to many species. He told her about the diseases that had evolved for millions of years to attack living bodies. He told her about the predators that could kill in seconds, and the storms that could destroy cities, and the earthquakes that could split the ground open without warning. He told her that every human alive was the descendant of survivors. That weakness had been bred out of their species over countless generations. That the soft, quiet girl who had enrolled in this academy was the product of millions of years of evolution on a world that killed without mercy. Katie grew up in a region of Earth called Colorado, Derek said. It is a mountainous area with large predators and extreme weather. Children there learn to handle dangerous situations before they enter formal education. They learn to stay calm when a predator is nearby. They learn to fight when there is no other choice. They learn to survive. 5. He paused and looked directly at Commander Thess. 7 adolescents from garden worlds with low gravity and gentle climates cornered a predator in a dark corridor and threatened her. What exactly did you think was going to happen? Commander Thess was silent for a long moment. The families of the injured students are demanding answers, she said finally. The Talamar family in particular. They have significant influence. Derek nodded. I understand. But Katie Morgan defended herself against a group of attackers who outnumbered her 7-1. She did not use weapons. She did not cause any permanent injuries. Frankly, given what she is capable of, I would say she showed remarkable restraint. Restraint? Derek's smile faded. Commander, if Katie had wanted to kill them, they would be dead. Every single one of them. The fact that they are in medical care instead of the morgue tells me that she was being very, very careful. The room went quiet. Commander Thess looked at the frozen image on her screen. A small human girl walking away from a scene of chaos. Her bag over her shoulder, her posture relaxed. What do you recommend? Commander Thess asked. Derek stood up. I recommend that you close this case. I recommend that you do not press charges against a victim who defended herself. And I recommend that you have a conversation with the Academy administration about how they treat their exchange students. He walked toward the door, then paused. One more thing. I would also recommend that you update your threat assessment protocols for Class 1, 2 Deathworld species. Your current classifications are based on studies of humans in controlled environments. They do not account for what happens when a human feels threatened. He left. Commander Thess sat alone in her office, staring at the screen, thinking about predators and prey in a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy where everything was designed to kill and humans had learned to kill right back. The next morning, she filed her report and marked the case closed. The news spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. By the next morning, everyone knew what had happened in the Eastern Maintenance Corridor. They knew that 7 students had cornered the human. They knew that the cameras had mysteriously failed. They knew that when security arrived, all 7 attackers were on the ground, and the human was nowhere to be found. The details were harder to confirm. Some said she had moved faster than the eye could follow. Others said she had some kind of secret training that humans kept hidden from the rest of the galaxy. A few claimed she had used forbidden weapons or drugs to enhance her abilities, but the students who had actually been there said nothing. They refused to talk about it. When asked, they looked away and changed the subject. Vrex Talamar withdrew from the academy 3 days later. His family released a statement saying he had decided to pursue his education elsewhere for personal reasons. No one believed it. Everyone knew the truth. The heir to the Talamar shipping empire had tried to intimidate a human, and he had broken something inside himself in the process. Katie returned to her classes the day after the incident. She walked through the halls with the same quiet confidence she had always shown. Her bag over her shoulder, her eyes forward, but everything was different now. Students stepped aside when she approached. Conversations stopped when she entered a room. No one whispered insults behind her back anymore. No one laughed at the primitive Deathworlder. They were too busy trying not to attract her attention. Katie pretended not to notice. She sat in her usual seat at the back of each classroom. She took her notes and did her work, and spoke only when the teachers called on her. She ate her meals alone, just as she always had. But she was not alone in the way she had been before. One morning, about a week after the incident, a Kelvari student approached her table in the dining hall. He was young and nervous, with pale blue markings that flickered uncertainly. Katie recognized him from her xenobiology class. His name was something like Torin, or Torn. She had never spoken to him directly. "May I sit here?" he asked. His voice trembled slightly. Katie looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded and gestured to the empty chair across from her. Torrance sat down. He placed his food tray on the table but did not eat. His hands were shaking too much. I wanted to say something, he began. About what happened. About Vrex and the others. Katie waited. I knew what they were planning, Torrance said. I knew they wanted to hurt you. And I did not say anything. I did not warn you. I did not try to stop them. He looked down at his tray. I was afraid. I was afraid that if I helped you, they would come after me next. So I stayed quiet and let them go. Katie nodded slowly. I understand. No. You do not. Torrance looked up at her with something like desperation in his eyes. I was a coward. I could have done something. I could have told security or warned you or just spoken up, but I did not. And now Vrex is gone, and 3 of my classmates have to repeat the semester because they cannot attend classes while they recover, and it is partly my fault. Katie was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and touched Torrance's hand. It was a gentle gesture, almost human. Torrance flinched but did not pull away. You were afraid, Katie said. That is not cowardice. That is survival. On my world, we learn the difference very young. Sometimes the brave thing to do is fight. Sometimes, the brave thing to do is hide. Knowing when to do which is what keeps you alive. Torrance stared at her. You are not angry? I am not angry at you, Katie said. You did not attack me. You did not try to hurt me. You were just a person trying to stay safe in a dangerous situation. I cannot blame you for that. She picked up her fork and returned to her meal. After a moment, Torrance did the same. They ate in silence. But it was a different kind of silence than before. It was the silence of 2 people who had reached an understanding. Over the following weeks, more students began to approach Katie. Some wanted to apologize for things they had said or done. Others just wanted to talk. To understand what it was like to come from a world where danger was everywhere. A few were simply curious about Earth, about humans, about the strange species that had survived against impossible odds. Katie answered their questions when she could. She told them about mountains that touched the sky and oceans that stretched beyond the horizon. She told them about storms that spawned tornadoes and winters that buried entire cities in snow. She told them about the animals that had evolved alongside humans, the wolves that had become dogs, and the big cats that still hunted in the shadows. She did not tell them about the fight in the corridor. She did not explain how she had defeated 7 opponents in less than 2 minutes. Some things were better left unspoken. Commander Thess filed her final report and added a personal recommendation to the Academy administration. She suggested improved security in the maintenance corridors. She suggested better cultural education about Deathworld species. She suggested, very carefully, that perhaps the exchange program needed more support for its human participants. Derek Lane received a copy of the report. He read it in his office on the embassy level and smiled. Integration was proceeding better than expected. There had been some bumps along the way, but that was normal. The important thing was that Katie had handled herself well. She had defended herself without causing permanent harm. She had shown restraint when she could have shown destruction. He sent a message to the Earth Diplomatic Corps. He noted that the exchange program was on track. He noted that there had been some cultural misunderstandings, but they had been resolved. He noted that Katie Morgan was an excellent representative of her species. He did not mention the 2 minutes of camera static. He did not explain the convenient timing of the technical malfunction. Some things were better left off the record. In her quarters that evening, Katie sat by the viewport and looked out at the stars. The station orbited slowly, giving her a view of the distant spiral arm, where Earth hung unseen. She thought about her home. She thought about the mountains where she had grown up. She thought about the sound of wind in the pine trees and the feel of solid ground beneath her feet. She thought about the lesson she had taught 7 students who had mistaken her for prey. Katie did not regret what she had done. She had given them every chance to walk away. She had asked them nicely to let her pass. They had made their choice, and she had made hers. That was how it worked on a death world. That was how it had always worked. But she hoped she would not have to do it again. She was tired of being seen as a threat. She wanted to be seen as a person. A strange person from a strange world, perhaps. But still a person. Maybe now she would get that chance. Katie closed her eyes and listened to the hum of the station around her. Tomorrow would be another day of classes, another day of conversations, another day of slowly building the connections that would prove humans deserved their place in the galaxy. She was ready. She had been ready her whole life. After all, that was what humans did. They faced whatever came next. They adapted. They survived. And no matter how dark the night became, they found a way to keep going until morning. Katie Morgan went to sleep with the stars shining outside her window and the memory of home in her heart. Tomorrow, the galaxy would continue turning. And she would be there to meet it. That was the human way.